Whatever it says.
People, you're gone live, people. You're live on air. Hello. This is going to be an unusual show for you guys because we're jumping from face to face. This is my face.
Are we jumping already?
Huh?
I said, are we jumping already?
Yeah, we're jumping from face to face. This face is Louise Moriarty, the Headless Buddha, if you don't already know. Do you want to introduce your face?
My face. This is my face. Everyone knows my face. This is Melanie Brockwell. The face of Melanie Brockwell. Well, that's the name that was given to the face.
It is the name that was given to the face. And today, our show is the culmination of our Perfect Present program. Some would say culmination, some would say just the beginning of something else. But it's the 8th week that we've been talking about each week, the different themes that we've had on the weeks, and today is permission to be powerful. So this week we redefine empowerment as a natural state and play into areas that reveal the impotence of manipulation, false humility, and blame. Life is effortless when you drop into your heart space for comfort and insight. Old ways of being have served you well, and now you are turning your appreciation to a new experience of life itself, the perfect present. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, we definitely need to see.
Melanie's yawn. So, permission to be powerful. So that doesn't mean I'll go out and chop down the trees or.
Well, I think it's permission to be.
Dramatic way.
Permission to be with powerful in parentheses. It's his concept that, you know, people don't understand what permission to be is. That it is a powerful state. I think that's why we added the extra word. But it was just permission to be. Extrapolating out that is a powerful thing.
And I think that, I guess that is one thing for me. I immediately started to notice when I stopped making myself wrong, that permission to be, it allows you to be without having to make sense of everything and without having to get, I don't know, it just feels like the more I'm talking to people, the more I'm getting a sense where everyone's exhausted from trying to find understanding of why things are the way they are. And just in that sense, that permission to be, and when I say be still, I don't mean be still, but it's almost, it's not stilling the mind, because your mind's still, all of you's still pumping and everything's still working, you're still having the experiences you're having. But there's something about just not having to make sense of it all, not feeling like you're the one who has to work it all out to maneuver all the pieces to make it all work out.
Yeah.
And in that position to just be there, you know, it is very powerful. It does change everything. Well, it changes you, changes everything.
Yeah, it changes your experience.
Mm.
It changes what you notice. It changes.
I've got a story.
All right.
I was at the immigration line the other day coming through customs, and for anyone who's been there, they know that it's usually quite a trying time for people. They've been on a long flight and they've got connecting flights and things to do, and they're in a new place and they're excited. You know, there's a lot of energy in that room, and that room is very shut down, you know, like it's very stay in the line and don't move and go where you're told and, you know, look a certain way and be a certain way and present your fingerprints and your eyes and da-da-da-da. And so people do feel quite threatened in there or quite, you know, hurted. And we were in there anyway, and there were some girls behind me, and they seemed lovely, and they were going to be on the same flight as me, and everyone was in a rush. Like lots of people had, you know, connecting flights that were like, how are we going to go through, get our baggage, go through, da-da-da, and get to our flight. So they were starting to get quite loud and rude and indignant and upset. And so then I was starting to get quite oh, don't be like that. Come on, be more spiritual like me. You can be more, be kinder to these people in my mind. Like I was trying to work out how to work them out into a better space for them. And then they were trying
Hang
to
on,
work
hang
out.
on. Can you just turn your computer around? It's hard to see you because the light's behind
Yeah, I think no
you.
matter where I go, it's a bit behind
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Now we can see your
Um,
face. We can see your
yeah,
face.
so they were going into their stuff, and then some people in front, some guys in front, they started, criticizing all the people working and judging them and telling them off. So then I was like trying to think what I would say to them to make them come out of that space. And, like just everyone was trying to work someone else out and work out how to get what they wanted in the situation. And then I started going, oh my God, I'm just making everyone wrong and incomplete here. What's going on? Like, how can I be different in this space? Because often when I'm in those spaces, I get myself into a tither. Like I get upset about things not being right, or like, how can they act like this with humans? You know what I mean? All this stuff. And I was determined not to go into that space. Like I was determined to do it differently. And then I'm like, what can I do? I don't even know what to do. And as I was kind of surrendering in a funny way, I looked down to the floor and they had that fleckled marble, I don't know what it is, but it's that kind of fleckled, it's not lino, but it's kind of, I don't know, old 70s flooring that's kind of really fleckled. And most of it is like this dull, mundane greys and blacks and whatever colours. But then all in amongst it is this amazing blue. Like it's almost like finding lapis lazuli at your feet, like there's just these totally sparkly, vibrant, outstanding fleckles within all the colours. And then I was just tripping out on that and having the best fun. Everywhere I went, that was there. It was like this treasure under our feet. And it was very exciting. I was very excited about that. I still kept it to myself. I still kept it to myself and was a superior spiritual being and just had the experience all to myself and let everyone else rush around in their distress. But that was fabulous. I very much enjoyed it.
But that is there. I mean, somewhere it's not separate. And I'm always going to come back to that. So if you're having the experience of the linoleum, it's not separate for them. Whereas if you're sitting there stressing about what it is that you should be saying to intervene to fix the problem, that's not separate from them either. So whatever your experience is, it's not that just because you can see that you're talking to someone that you're interacting, that interconnection exists whether you're speaking to them or not, whether you're thinking about them or not. So whatever you're doing is part of their existence as well. So all of that, there's no keeping it to yourself. I mean, the only experience that you have when you say it out loud is your own experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's it. There's nothing else to it. It's not like there's a cause and effect and you're going for an outcome. The only experience that you have when you say it out loud is still yours. So the difference between the experience of thinking it or not thinking it, of saying it or of doing it, the only difference is your experience. There's no difference it's not for someone else. It's not for some separation or some cascading domino effect. It's already interconnected. There's no way for it not to be already part of that I am experience. I don't know, there's just something very comforting in knowing that whatever is happening for you is relevant. It's relevant to everyone else, but not in that separation language, not in that cause and effect way. And the only thing that's, that is for you to pay attention to is your experience, because it's the only sense of reality and where you are and who you are and what's happening that you have.
Yeah, I think too, though, there's many of us who are, I was going to say social workers just because I was trying to find somewhere to stay with a social worker. But, are social workers in the sense that we do have a purpose to make things different. it feels like, to change, I don't know, to be with people, to share something different. It does feel like, well, it just feels like whatever we do on the planet, it's going to affect change. Like, change is happening all the time, and all of us interact with the world in a way that affects change. So I just wonder about that, because, you know, we look at people like, I don't know, Gandhi or Martin Luther King or Mother Teresa or whoever, the Dalai Lama, and hold those people up as examples of people who have been powerful in the world, in the sense that they have, you know, freed people from suffering or some such thing. You know, they've given people circumstances that are simpler, easier for them to handle.
I don't know. I'm not an expert on what they did or why they did it. I can't really. It would be hard for me to speak to how that's relevant. It would be hard for me to say how that operates. You know, how to tell a different story about it. Because I mean, the only difference is the story that you tell from duality, or the story that you tell from oneness or heart alchemy. It's not that the people are doing anything differently. It's just that the way you understand it, the amount of information that you have available to you is different. The way you assess whether someone is equal and essential is different. You know, putting those people above anybody else wouldn't happen in heart alchemy. The idea that someone's activities are more important than somebody else's wouldn't happen in heart alchemy. There's just a sense that we are spirit manifest, that reality is, you know, it's energy and it's constantly changing, but it's not changing from a fixed point where I am separate from something else and I can go out and move something else in a way that's separate from me, because that, just by being in existence, I am part of that interconnection, and the change is reality itself. It's not something that I have to push out into some separate world, some objects or etheric space that's not inherently connected or interconnected to who I am. So it would just be about telling that story from a different cosmology. But I don't. You would probably have to ask someone who knows more about their lives.
I still go, like, for most people watching our show, for most people doing the course, they come out from a place where they want their life to be better, and they feel like once their life is better, they will be able to have a new interaction with the world where they can have a more profound effect on it. They can come into people's lives, and with their coming through, that will make people feel better. It won't make them feel worse. And I just wonder about that, because in the sense that most people would relate permission to be powerful to the sense of being able to create more powerfully on the planet, manifest what they want, have experiences that excite them, whatever it is. Be a more powerful agent for change, be a better entrepreneur, whatever they're going for. Because for most people, that feels like their purpose. Like the sense of the outcome, what it looks like, feels like their purpose, not so much the less tangible aspects of it.
I'm not sure what the question is, like,
because it's just around what people think permission to be powerful means. It is just around that. Even that sense of, for me, travelling through a situation that I've travelled through before and feeling like I've somehow been more powerful in that situation, had less negative impact on people. Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like I think that powerful is coming in and being able to manipulate change better. I mean, this was the very sentence in the thing about, in the promo to this show, about revealing the impotence of manipulation, false humility, and blame. Like that whole, I don't know, like, because I still go, I'm still seeing the permission to be and the powerful as I will be more powerful at being able to manipulate situations, energy, matter, whatever.
Did it
To
say
have,
the impotence of manipulation?
yeah, it does. But I'm getting you to explain that to people because I think
Oh,
most people, including me, still go, being powerful would mean I'm in a better place myself and I can make the world a better place. No matter how they look at it. Like, you know, me being at the airport, it's like I look at that situation and go, how can I be in a better energy for myself so that I can have a better influence on the area around me so that it feels better? And I do feel separate when I'm moving through it. I feel like I've got my job to do in there and I'm separately moving around and I am having an influence on people. Like that
um,
separateness in our lives is all pervasive in a way.
yeah, I guess it just depends on the story that you tell about how the world is put together. And
But I'm
I,
just
I,
wondering, just for
there's,
people,
yeah.
when you say that thing about Gandhi and Martin Luther King, everyone we know has got a story about that. They could tell you what they know is true about those people from their assessment of their impact on the world. Do you know what I mean? Like, no, not many people stand outside of what they've heard or what they've been told, where they buy the story, and the story is that, and that's good enough for them to make sense of the world.
Hmm. Yeah, no, because I can't, and it's also part of that whole, whatever information is part of that, random access memory for me is relevant somewhere. That information, I know that if it's available to me, it's relevant to the stuff that we need to talk about. And if it's not available to me, if I don't have a an instant sense of who they are or what their story is, then I know somehow it's not for me to talk about them. I mean, it's just it comes back to that sense of, well, what question are you, not you, but what question are you asking in general, and where does that take you? And even that sense of like in scientific and medical examination or research, it is the sense of it's the questions that are being asked and the way the data is being put together for the story at the end. Like I know it feels like that's different to the story of I think my purpose is in change and betterment and connection, but it's not separate from that story because somewhere that story comes from all of the structure of how you see the world. So, within that structure, if the story tells you you are separate and you find all this evidence that you are separate, and the information that you're using as that evidence has got nothing to do with being separate, but the story that you're telling looks for the evidence of being separate, and so that's where you store it. You store it in the bucket that proves that you're separate. And then from there, so you've made that a fact. And then, from there you go, oh, and, the story about my distress is, I'm not sure, but it just feels like there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more basic information. There's a lot more structural information involved in what you're saying than just, oh, true, tell me a story that makes it true or not true. There's no analogy that you can lay on top of the structure of someone's cosmology and make it different. You can't, it's not about opening someone's eyes to something that they're too stupid to see. And it's not about opening someone's heart to something that they're too shut down to notice. It's about if you feel the pull to something other than the concept of an evolution in a flawed society, if you feel the pull to something where interconnection is inherent, if you feel the pull to something where, living mastership is in the present, if you feel the pull to something that doesn't want to make anyone right, wrong, or incomplete, if you feel the pull to a sense of, I just need to be present to this moment, and all the wisdom of all that is available to me in a living experience. It's not something that I need to attain cognitively or through, some other separated categorical experience of reality that I can prove when I have enough money and people like me and, I'm doing what I love. Like, if you feel the pull to something else, then you'll investigate the ideas. And then in investigating the ideas, you've made that first surrender to a different experience. And then it will be true for you. Because if it's not true for you, it's not relevant. Like, it's not about convincing people that there's an alternative. They're already walking around feeling for it because they know that something else is there for them. When they ask the question, but why, and someone gives them the answer, they're excited, but they know that there's something else, and so they keep looking. And then you get to the story about heart alchemy and oneness, and you go, okay, well, maybe it's in there, because somewhere I feel like that's more accepting, that's telling a story that allows me not to make enemies, and it's telling me a story that allows me not to be in overwhelm, and it's telling me a story that allows me, to move through the world both connected to all the wisdom that has ever existed, but not having to have all the answers, and certainly not having to constantly be on a search and never reach anywhere. So I think it's different to saying there's just another way of looking at it, because it really comes back to, well, what is the structure that's in place? Because once you feel that pull, then you go, okay, so what is heart alchemy? And then we go into, well, here is the whole structure of the story that you're telling at the moment. And it's not that we're trying to change that. We just go, let's make it visible. And then you have your own experiences through that. And there is a sense of walking through the world and knowing that emotion can be interpreted in another way. There is another, there are other rules of engagement, of anger or frustration or uncertainty or any of those things that we would normally go, oh, there's something wrong with that. That's a sign that God's angry with me, or I'm doing it wrong, or I'm being led in another direction. So instead of being constantly herded in a particular direction, or being told you're doing it wrong and not having a sense of what you're meant to be doing differently, heart alchemy gives you another way of being in the world. So it's not just another story about how to be in the world. It's another way of being in the world, which examines all the structures of the world that you're in at the moment.
Part of me goes, I want to talk about it like as an analogy of my journey, because I don't know, people don't necessarily know, but I'm always going on about I'm on a journey, and Mel's kind of going, well, that's not, I don't know, what would you say in response to that, Mel?
I would say that's in duality. I would say there's nothing wrong with it. I would just say that that's in duality, and to be self-aware that it is about saying that's my truth and it works for me.
Yeah. And I can't help trying to figure out what the analogy is around the journey, because, like even now, there's a sense that I am on a journey. There's no doubt about it. I want to get back home one day. I'm going from here to there, and I want to get back home. And I do have a destination in mind, like it is home, But how I participate in the experience of my journey is all important. and where I stand when I'm making decisions. I don't know, it just feels like there's something, even in that analogy for people. Because, you know, but I know you certainly, like all of us, you don't just sit in duality and go, I'm not going to make any plans, or I'm not going to go in any particular direction, or I'm not going to, I don't know, you know you're going to go to the shop this afternoon and buy some vegetables, or you know that you're going to do something. You've got a plan. You're setting up an 8-week course. You know that there's one thing after the other that's going to come up. But I guess just thinking about it, you know, I'm just thinking about it, because even in terms of where I'm traveling at the moment and going, how do I make decisions around what to do next? When I am really open to it unfolding, you know, there's certain places that I have to be, but there's lots of space in between for things to happen and connections to be made and me to be dropped into my experience. And even when I say that, I know somewhere in your mind, you know, it's like, that sounds like I'm separate from the experience, that I have to be dropped into it or something. But it always feels like that to me in some way. Like it often feels like that you're being dropped into something, you know, that it still feels separate. I go, it still feels like I'm a piece of this machinery.
What is this machinery? What does that mean?
Well, you know, people walking around the planet doing their thing, having their influence on things, running into each other, missing each other, whatever else they're doing.
Say it again. What's the machinery? What does that mean?
There's me, there's a tree,
Yeah.
there's you, there's Jana making toast in the kitchen, there's a fireplace over there. I don't know, like that sense of being separate feels separate, you know, like it does for most people here on the planet. They feel separate. They feel like they're born into a family and they don't necessarily belong. They feel like they're born into a culture that they're at odds with. They feel like they're, you know, there's a global conspiracy that's fighting against them. You know, like people, it seems like generally on the planet, most people feel separated. Even though they
I
can read
guess
all the quantum physics and all the stuff around that we are interconnected, and at some level they go, yes, I know I'm interconnected. I know I breathe the air of the trees. I know I don't know, have an experience of something that tells me or that makes me feel otherwise, but then they drop out of that experience and keep walking through the world trying to find a way to feel like they belong or feel like they're connected.
I guess, well, maybe it's got to do with all those stories that I've read. Because in physics, in quantum physics, in sociology, in politics, in economics, in history, in spirituality and healing, in culture, the story is there is no end. So we're all made of energy. The end of your body is not the end of what, you know, makes you you. What makes you you is changing every day and is, you know, interconnected with a, you know, what I call a quantum map. Like all of those things are real for me. They're not stories that I read on the side as some kind of investigation. That's when I walk through the world, that's what I see. You know, that sense of having an 8-week course or whatever, yeah, those things exist, but I'm only paying attention to here. Like I have a sense of, you know, there is an 8-week course. If it gets done, it gets done. It's not about making this moment about that moment. It's about making this moment about this moment. And there's a, you know, a certain amount of structure, I guess, that's kind of put up, but it all like it doesn't exist. Like the 8-week course is the 8-week course. How or what we do about that is up to us, and it's up to us in the now. It could all manifest as something completely different. There's no way to say what that will be at the end. There's no way to say what it will look like or who it will be for or when it will be finished. There's no way to plan any of that. There's just a sense of, yeah, this is the picture we have today, and so we start working on in today what we're doing. I'm not sure. And all of that stuff about, yes, we know we breathe the same air as the trees, it's more than that. You know, the food we eat, like even if you just want to go biological, the very energy of life is shared. There's no separation. There's no, I don't know, it's an interconnection rather than a ping ponging, you know, rather than a I'm sitting next to the tree. Just I'm having an experience of a certain configuration of consciousnesses, and it's part of that. Like it's not. Yes, I can touch it, but I can also feel my heartbeat. Does that make it separate to me? Like I'm not sure where that sense of separation comes from. If people really know all that stuff, if they know all the quantum physics stuff, and they know how society works and that none of it is separate. You can't make a political decision without it being part of the people that have voted for the person who's in power, who are now running the businesses, who are funding the things that go through or not, which is also part of a global trade situation that's also connected to, like, there's the weather, which is connected to, like, none of it is separate. I mean, when you really actually study that stuff and say, you know, there is no such thing as a discrete or isolated event, there's no such thing as a discrete and isolated identity. I mean, if you actually get that, then you're walking around in a world where that is true. But if you're just reading it and dismissing it, then it's not true. It's not part of your reality. It's just an idea that you've, like, picked up and put down, which is not the same as saying people know that it's true. And I'm not saying that they have to figure that out. It's not like a test. It's not like someone has to go and do a degree in interconnection or whatever. But I think the point is people don't know that. People are, you know, saying that people know that is not true, because they don't, because they'd be walking around in a world where it's true if they knew it. I'm not sure why that's important.
It does feel like people think it's a test, like, you know, the oneness test or the whatever test, you know, like it feels like people are walking around going, how do I find proof for this, or where do I, you know, keep letting the story, the proof align with the story. I want to keep finding evidence for that proof to align with the story.
And I think that's why in the perfect present we started with those concepts of where the structure is in place, that self-awareness that allows you to see the structure that's in place, that's filtering out any information that's counter to the story that's being held in those beliefs and rules that were probably made before you could even speak. So, you know, there's a sense of no other system is going to take you into those ideas without telling you that they're wrong. No other system is going to take you into that self-examination without also telling you that you need to heal this part and remove that part and include this new part to make it better, you know, which is not what heart alchemy is about. It is just about that sense of self-awareness, self-acceptance. And if it, you know, if you're pulled to it, then there's a sense of gratitude, and then you can have those ideas of oneness, because you realize that it's like, you know, playing with an instrument and then realizing that you love that instrument, but you've discovered a new one, and so you're going to take on this new one and learn this new instrument. It's not about rejecting the old instrument and the old ideas and the old structure that held you in place. It's in seeing the value of the instrument that you've been playing, and now you want to play a different kind of music. You know, it's not a rejection or a healing. It's an exploration. You can make a choice. But I think it's only when you get to the point where you say, I love it and I'm grateful for everything that it gives me, because it allows me all those things, you know, to be, to be in a world that makes sense, to belong in a particular way, even if it's not the way that I think it should be, and to have a meaning to my life, even if it's not the meaning that I can appreciate, and just being able to recognize that all those things are actually present, even though they're not in a way that you can see. And then, being grateful for that and picking up a new instrument. I mean, it sounds simple, and it is, but I think that the fact that our emotions and our cognitions and our biases and our reality aren't separate makes it a full-bodied, present-centered experience, which is not something that you can just do in your head or do in a meditation on the weekend. It's not something that you can kind of put in place accidentally, like from the side, or it's not a mechanical process.
Just I just get a sense of people going, well, then how do you do it? How do you change? Because for most people, they're seeing it as a change they have to make. They're seeing it as something that they have to adapt, replace, fix. I don't know, like it feels like there's that sense of, well, then they want the instruction manual. They want us or someone else to tell them how to do it, which is where religions and philosophies and modalities on the planet have prospered and thrived. That they want someone to tell them they're doing all right. You're doing all right, kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's pretty much the only message in Heart Alchemy, is that whatever you're doing it for a reason. And it's a very wise reason. It's a very wise reason that's keeping you safe, giving you a sense of how things work, a sense of belonging and a meaningful life. There's no part of the story that says you're getting it wrong. There's no part of the story that will diminish what you've done or the choices you've made or, what you want. Like, none of it's going to turn around and say, you're a moron for not figuring it out. It's not about that. It's about wherever you are, you're there for a reason. There's a sense of purpose in every experience. It's just about being able to see that everything is sacred. And it's only if that's what you want. I mean, you don't have to have that experience. If you get to a point and you go, actually, I just really like to be able to let go of the idea of everything is sacred, then go do that. Like, nobody's, if the reason people sign up for the perfect present is to have an effortless life, and their sense of effortless comes back to, well, I don't want to have to make it all sacred, then they can do it that way. There's no, and then, there's still, when things get stressful, you'll have a way of understanding it that doesn't, blame the rest of the universe or make you a victim of forces that are, trying to manipulate you. Like, you have a different story in place. So even in those moments of doubt and distress, you've got another way of interpreting what's going on, which at the moment there is no other way on the planet of interpreting what's going on. The only story that comes in is either someone else is doing it to me or there's something wrong with me. There is no other story. So this is another story. This is another way of interpreting what's going on. And it's not just interpreting the so-called symptoms. It's also interpreting all the things that you think are going right, all the things that you think you're getting. So,
hey, hang on, I've been getting a very good adventure. I thought that meant I was a very good person.
Well, if that's your story, then that's true, Louise. Of course.
Well, that.
But then I think one of the questions in that whole self-awareness thing, even in the rules, is you go, well, is it more important to be good or is it more important to know what's going on? Like, but that's what it comes back to. And that's where we get a self-awareness around our rules, around our priorities, around the stories that we're telling. Chicken pause.
Here we don't have a Chugan pause, we have the central heating pause. I thought the central heating was a plane. And the fabulous electric fire that goes and the logs glow a bit more. Ooh. And they also make snow here. They make snow. Up on the hill, they're making snow. I saw them.
Wow. Wow.
Snow. At the Ritz. Okay. So the snow people could come on snow holiday.
Oh.
There's not enough snow to play in, so they needed to have some more. So they're making some for them.
Okay.
It's very exciting.
Snow people will be happy.
I didn't know they made snow. I mean, I guess I did somewhere, but I'd never seen it before. It's very exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you've never been, even here, hey? In Australia, no. You've never been. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, they make snow here as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Life's full of wonder.
It is, absolutely. So how does that feel, Miss Louise?
Which bit? The being with, the being, what was it, permission to be?
Just right now.
Good. Yep. And see, that's the other thing that I've noticed a lot, and I know all of us who've been hanging out in big-time duality around getting better and everything. It's like the end of every one of my sentences has an evaluation.
Yeah.
Because they say to me, how is that? I go, it's good. And that is that whole thing of I'm doing good because the interactions I'm having are good and the exchanges are good and it's all good. You know, like inherent in every bit of my dialogue is the evaluation that places the moment in a duality, you know, like places the last moment or the potential future moment. You know, like even when I just say it's good, it's like an expectation that I'm manifesting some future good as well by being good now. You know, like it just feels like the residue of the old stories still lives in my language and still lives, yeah, in my language probably. Because there is that sense of when you ask me a question, I answer it with an evaluation, with a judgment, and that judgment extrapolates out still to mean something. And it is into that area of that we're cause and affecting, you know, like we're running around the planet having an impact on things and what we do changes them in a particular way.
Yeah.
So I still keep coming back to that the same, and I'm not sure what it's got to do with the being permission to be powerful in parentheses, but it feels like it's got something to do with that. For a deeper understanding for people of what it actually means in heart alchemy to be with in that different paradigm.
Well, I don't think it will be different. If that's the stories that are coming out, then it's not different. And I think it is just about, so how can you be with? Yeah, like as you say, so how can you be with if that is the story that's being told? Because if it's not a sense of being a little bit pregnant. If you're not using the language or seeing the world in that way, if you can't, you know, whatever you can't do is not important. What you can do is what's real. So if you can be on a journey, if you can feel like you're changing people, if you can, you know, do all those things, then that's where you are. So how can you be with? How can you make that visible and not something that's right, wrong, or incomplete? You know, that's more about what the process of heart alchemy is for. It's about self-awareness and self-acceptance, that sense of you know, it's not that I need to make myself something I'm not. It's just that I need to make visible what I am and know that that's perfect and it's serving me perfectly. How can I see that that's true? Well, first I have to make it visible. If I make it visible, a whole lot of judgments are going to come up. Great, let's have that conversation. And then once we make visible all those judgments, we can get to the heart of the story that's holding it all in place, and we can be thankful for the story that's holding it all in place. And then, there's just that, it's just a constant coming back to, it's not something that's wrong with me. It's not something that's wrong with the world. It's not something that I haven't figured out yet. And even if it goes no further than, I am on a journey and I think things are good or bad and I want things to change, as long as that, when that becomes visible and loved and accepted, there's a different experience that we have of that reality. We're not constantly in battle with ourselves trying to make it something it's not. We're not constantly in battle with other people trying to convince them that it's, they should be doing something different as well. So there is this kind of peace that comes with making it visible and loving who we are in that space, which is a huge, people spend lifetimes trying to do that stuff. It's not a 1 hour meditation process.
And so even when you say it like that, though, I feel like people drop into, so see there, it is evolution. We are on a conscious, expanding journey where, after several more lifetimes of us having these experiences where we're able to be with and drop in, maybe we'll get a glimpse of nirvana, maybe we'll get a glimpse of heaven on earth, maybe we'll be able to operate in a space of love, where we're impacting love on other people constantly.
But no one said anything about heaven on earth or love or outcomes or anything like that. Where did that come in?
Just in that very sense where you're going, people have worked on that for lifetimes. That's part of the big story that's playing.
But people have spent lifetimes simply trying to make...
Sorry, can you say that again? I spoke over you.
No, that's all right. I was just going, the people have spent lifetimes trying to make visible and, that sense of self-awareness. Self-awareness is not like a heaven on earth outcome. Self-awareness is a living process, because you can't become aware of yourself and then go into the next moment and not be in that process. Self-awareness is not an outcome. It's a living wisdom. It's not something that you're not the same person in every moment. You're not the same person every week. You can't get to a point and go, oh, that's it. I know who I am now. I can just go out into the world, and I don't know what the story is after that. But it's a sense of
fabulous. Can't you go out into the world and be fabulous? Isn't that what you're doing?
Can't you just be fabulous anyway? I don't know. I just go, it's like the whole surrender thing. It's not, you don't do it once and then that's it, you've done it for a lifetime. It's something you do in every moment. It's something you do in every moment.
That in the contract? You just had to say it once, like a little vow, and then that was it. It was done. So in marriage, you say, I do, and then happily ever after, no more surrender, no more love, no more. You just should have been all sorted by then. I thought that's what the fairy godmother was about, Mel.
No.
I thought the fairy godmother waved their magic wands and then everything was, I don't know, stable.
No.
No more change.
In order for life to be magical, life needs to be magical. And it's that commitment that you make in every moment. Do you want to be good, or do you want to be effortless, or do you want to be aware, or do you want to be the wisest person in the room, or do you want to be the angriest person in the room, or do you want to have the most physical power, or do you what commitment are you making in every second? Because that's really what it is. And self-awareness is making the commitment of, I want to be self-aware. I want to make visible what's invisible. I want to be with no matter what. Whatever the commitment is that you're making it in every situation. You're making it in every second. You're not making it and then going out and playing by some other rule. It's not a yeah, like you say, it's not a contract. It's not a ceremony. It's how you live your life. It's how you show up. It's the way that you walk around in the world. It's why you notice what you notice. It's how you feel present. What are you looking for?
I was just having a little stretch.
I thought you were looking for something.
I was looking to see how I looked at the world. I looked out the window and saw the world and went, the world is all is well in my world. They would be proud of me. She would give me a pat on the back. I would get points. See, even God laughed then. Did you hear that? God was laughing from the other side of the room. Oh, now he's blowing his nose. I don't know what that means. About my spiritual ascension. I'm not sure if I got extra brownie points then or not.
You got green points.
I got green points. Oh, gross.
Hey, the sacred is in everything. And that's one of the things that we get to play with in heart alchemy. It is that sense that, you know, what is taboo for us? What can't we accept about ourselves? All of those things are made visible and sacred. I don't know, there are special moments to be had. Like when people say, what was the highlight of your day? I just go, well, maybe it was something that I can't even remember because I was paying attention so vividly that it's not even stored. Like, it's not even stored as a chemical emotional memory. It's just a part of some magic that occurred today. You know, and I think that's kind of something that changes is that how you file situations in your brain. You don't file them as an interaction with a person or a walk in nature. They all become part of this moment. And I know that sounds like rhetoric, but it's true. You don't, you know, like I have to think really hard. What did I do yesterday? Who did I talk to? What were the conversations? Did I go outside? I don't have the sense of those things as being stored in a file. Because every moment you're just paying attention to everything that's relevant, everything that's coming in. It's just a very, I mean, from the stories that you tell me about what people, how people live, you know, and the things that they're thinking in their head and the way that they're focusing on the world, it just feels like a very different reality. It is like your flex on the floor in the airport.
What about him?
Well, it is just like that's what's relevant in that moment. All that other stuff is occurring, but what's really going on? Like, what's really going on? In that moment, what's really going on? Like all of that stuff, but at the same time, just because that's within a visual range or, you know, something's within earshot doesn't mean that's the only thing that's going on. You are tuned to everything that's occurring. You know, there is a sense of, you know, Mars in retrograde or, you know, some other conflict on the planet or a decision being made in politics or someone having an orgasm or a child dying in some country. Like it's all of it is part of the information that you're receiving. There's nothing that's not part of, you're not, the information you're receiving doesn't stop within your visual field. So all of that, and I call it information because none of it is separate, whether it's, you know, you want to separate it into chemical or emotional or physical. Like for me, it's all just information. It's all relevant. So that sense of what are you paying attention to, like what's happening now. I'm not in an interaction with another human being who's separate from me, and like
That's interesting because someone was saying last night how they're doing a massage course and they walked in and they've had heavy hectic days and they walked in and they burst into tears and that's what they needed to do, but everyone in the room had their reaction to it and wanted to figure out why, or wanted to have an impact on it in different ways.
Mm.
And they were also then thrown into struggling with, well, what does this actually mean and why am I having this emotional experience? And of course, for all of us, most of us go into, well, how do I change this? What's going on for me? Why is it so, Professor? Is it, am I crying for my own exhaustion? Am I crying for someone else's experience? Am I crying because I made a bad choice? Am I crying? What am I crying for? What am I crying for? And we put a lot of energy into trying to work out why the emotional experience we're having is the way it is. And we put a lot of, energy into trying to change it.
Yeah.
In a particular direction when it will just naturally change anyway.
Yeah, and it's it's being with that experience, like whatever the structure of your reality is how you will be with that experience, and that's where that pull comes from. So if the structure of your reality tells you there's something wrong and you need to have an explanation, then that's where your focus will be, and that's the experience that you will have, because it's not just the tears, it's all of that other stuff. It is all of those ideas about what it means. So you've already got a story about what it means, even if the first thing that comes in is, I can't make sense of this. You've already got a story that I need to make sense of this, in a particular way. And that will be your experience.
And it's so interesting too, where we judge, we're always thinking about the so-called, what we call negative experiences, but we don't give the same scrutiny to the reasons behind, why am I feeling blissful? What is all the things that led to me going, this is a blissful experience, this experience is a good one that I want, that ticks all my boxes. We don't give a lot of scrutiny to the, what it is that's led us to believe that this is a good experience. Like you were saying before when I was saying about Gandhi and Martin Luther King or whatever, what is it that's made us go, tick the box, if I could be like them, that would work for me, that would be right. It would be seen as right by people. Like somewhere we've created a whole story around why that is something to hold up as an example, and other things are, not on our radar.
Yeah.
In that same way.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think, there was something else that you were saying in there. The positive and negative. Yeah, and even that sense of the positive story being about sacrifice. Even in that sense of, say, for people to be a certain shape, or to have their skin or hair or health at a certain level, there's this whole story about sacrifice. So it was the chocolates I didn't eat, and the pain that I went through when I went to the gym, and the things that I did to control myself in order to have a body that looks a certain way, or a state of health that's, I don't know, it's like there's a righteousness to that whole positive experience that's about, well, it feels like it's about sacrifice. It certainly isn't about being effortless. It certainly isn't about acknowledging, who we are and celebrating that. There's a whole list of tests that you have to pass in order for those positives to occur. I'm not sure where that goes for people.
Does that mean I have to celebrate having a headache because I haven't had a coffee this morning? Come on, people, really?
Yeah, but how do you then? So how do you be with that without making it? And how do you know it's about coffee?
Well, you don't. That's the other thing. There's so many contributing factors that I could hook on, but I'm hooking on that one because I think I want a cup of coffee.
Well, you can have your cup of coffee,
All
you know.
right, yeah.
Yeah, there's no part of the story that says you can't, like, and it's not about indulgence. It's about responsibility. It's about saying that's what I want and I'm choosing to have this.
And
You know, and I'm not.
I'm just going to come back, and I don't know if it's a good time to come back, but maybe it's the next show.
Yeah,
That sense that even when we start talking about that, there's a part of me that wants the drama to continue. You know, like it's like, oh yeah, but then to get the coffee, I've got to walk out and it's cold, you know, and it's freezing out there and it's a long way to the shop and I don't even know where I'm going. You know, it's like we're addicted to the drama. We're addicted to the excitement of our personal little story for so
yeah,
many of us, you know, like, you know, even when I think back to those girls in the thing, it's like, oh, our plane, we're going to be late. It's going to be da 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 da. And it
yeah,
feels like it's a big performance we're doing about our story,
yeah,
making it
yeah. Well, it
important.
has. But even for, the longest time, if you have a look at, particularly in Western culture, but certainly in other cultures, there's life, private and public, were always about a particular performance. So depending on what caste of society, you were in, you were only allowed to wear particular fabrics, you had to speak in particular language, you were only allowed to touch people in particular ways. Even the way you held your hands and your head was dictated by who you were, what gender you were, and where you lived, and all that other stuff. Louise is doing hand movements.
Yeah.
Um, so life has been a performance. Like, there was very little room for you to physically move in that space outside of what was dictated by what society said you were, how society identified you. And that has continued. We have, and it's the same as when we talk about the kids at school who have been diagnosed with something, and the teacher attributes everything to that diagnosis, even though it's got nothing to do with it. Like, there are some situations that are completely irrelevant to that diagnosis, that they're just having a shit day, or, maybe they're hungry, or maybe something else is going on. Maybe Mars is in retrograde. Like,
Interesting because
there's so much. Hey?
I was just talking to Ross the other day, and we watched the Salt documentary. If you haven't seen this documentary called Salt by a director called Mick Angus, it's beautiful, and it's about this artist who goes out into Lake Eyre to take photographs. Anyway, his artistic process and the way he thinks as an artist very much is the way that Ross thinks. And we were talking about, how much of that way of being in the world is just their natural way of being and the way they explore the world, and how much of it is because for them to be an artist in this society, they have to conform to all the norms that society and culture and other people expect of an artist. So somehow these two people in very separate places with very different modalities of being an artist, both very much configure to the same way of thinking in the world. And we were just talking about how much of that, but that's back to that something's being imposed upon you again. Like,
No. So what I'm saying is that life has been, that sense of life being a performance has pervaded cultures for a very long time. It's not a new thing for us to think that we have to behave in a particular way. Like, that has been, life as a performance has been going on for a very long time. And it is that sense of duality of the fact that who I am inside is not who I am outside. Who I am outside, needs to reflect what other people will understand. And and it is that concept of a shared language that it comes back to. There are all of these assumptions that our behaviours are fitting within cultural norms, but there's also a sense of what is that shared language, because really we just want to make sense of ourselves and make sense of ourselves in the world and make sense of the world for ourselves. So that all comes back to this sense of what is that shared language, and the performance becomes part of that shared language, which also always comes back to those, everyone is motivated by the desire to feel loved. We wouldn't care about the shared language if that wasn't true. That sense of how I make sense of the world makes me safe comes back to the shared language, and how I belong is the shared language, and what makes my life meaningful is the shared language. Because if you had one all of your own, which you do, but if you did that consciously, if that was visible, then there wouldn't be any stories about anyone else. You would know that everyone has their own language. You would start explaining what other people are doing in a way that's outside of you. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about that sense of who I am that comes into play with heart alchemy in a very different way to, psychotherapeutic theories and other spiritual texts. It's a very different sense of how you know who you are, or how you explain that performance, not as something, like you say, that's being imposed upon you, but as part of our motivation to feel loved.
Indeed. Well, Miss Melanie Brockwell, it's time.
Okay.
We've got
It's
another
time.
call with the inaugural participants of the Perfect Present program. So
We
if
do.
there's anyone else who is intrigued out there, we'll see you next week, I'm sure, or we'll see you on the program. And
how do they find it?
www.miraclesandwonder.com.
No,
Or is it down under?
miraclesandwonder.com.
Excellent. That'll be fabulous. And I'll just show people, because they won't see them at the Body, Mind, Spirit Festival because I forgot to leave some. There's a postcard.
Oh, no.
There's a postcard, Mel. You'll be happy to see it. There's some in the glove box of my car when my car comes back. There's some in the glove box of my car.
Hey?
There's some in the glove box of my car for you.
Yeah, the car's not here yet.
No, it'll come home soon, though.
Oh, okay.
Sooner than me.
Sooner than you. All right. Well, I guess I'll talk to you in about 5 minutes.
We'll see all the people later. Have fun, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Bye. Bye.